What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Malik's Water Garden. So this is actually going to be a really fun video for me to make because we're going to be looking at a fish that really was my first Hypancistrus in the hobby. I actually got my first Hypancistrus L340 Mega Clown Pleco about 10 years ago. I got 7 of them from Menagerie, which is at Parliament Street West here in Toronto. And this is when they first came out, so they were not cheap, and they lived for a total of 7 days. And yeah, that was my first experience with Hypancistrus Plecos. So this has been a long, long hobby of lots of losses in the past. I've actually lost quite a bit of fish myself. Not like hundreds of fish, but those 7 definitely I lost. I lost L34 Medusa Plecos. I lost a group of 7. That was really sad. Probably about 10 whiptails, 2 separate species. Actually, no, 7 in one bag and 5 in another bag. This was like early 2000s. And when these animals were first coming into the hobby, and nobody had any idea what was going on and how to take care of them. And I was also quite young at the time, and so I was just seeing them, had money, bought them. They were quite expensive, and I wasn't that rich. But yeah, it's really sad because the animals suffered their lives. With their lives, they paid for my not having the proper understanding. So this is why I'm going to make this video for you guys, which is how to take care of Hypancistrus species L340 Mega Clown Plecos. Now I have my breeding group in here. They are spawning. They're doing quite well. I have a lot of fry, about 60 plus. I actually lost one here. You'll see him in some B-roll. I'm preserving him. It's quite stunning, actually, a lot of these guys. This guy got crushed by one of the caves while I was moving around picking up a cave yesterday. Stupid me, and I found him this morning, under the cave. And instead of flushing it down the toilet, I figured I'm going to preserve him because it might be useful for genetic analysis in the future. So this video is going to be about how to taking care of them, temperature data and all that good stuff, water parameters and whatever. And a full video about how to breed them is coming up next. So subscribe down below and hit that notification icon if you haven't already, so you get updated with that video as well as many other videos like that get uploaded. Now in my hand here, I have 2 dead specimens. One is a juvenile or baby that passed away yesterday, and my fault. And this girl here actually died from spawning activity. Now, they're one of the most aggressive Hypancistrus that I own and I've ever kept. I've actually kept other Hypancistrus that are a little bit more aggressive than these guys. But in general, Hypancistrus is one of the more aggressive types of Plecos. Now, that doesn't mean you don't keep them in individual pairs or anything like that, because in my experience at least, they are very social animals. I have a group of 9 in here, and I started with 12, and I lost this girl and 2 more. Now they have actually settled in since they've been here for almost a little over a year now. A year and a few months, actually, a few weeks now. I've had this group, and they've produced over 60 fry already. Now, first of all, let's see how we can tell these apart from all the other Hypancistrus. So I'll put some close-ups of this girl's mouth structure. So they are the type of Hypancistrus that has the lowest amount of teeth on their lower jaw. So on average, they have between 2 to 6 teeth on each side on their lower jaw. So this girl has about 3 teeth on each side. So I haven't actually put it to a microscope, but I did try my best to get a close-up so you guys can also see. They are quite similar to L129, another Hypancistrus that comes from a similar region, but you can actually tell them apart because the L129 is a little bit smaller and also has more teeth on the lower jaw, and so the L340 is a more robust fish that is a little bit more, I guess, compressed on the head, but also wider on the head area. So there, loricarid.info explains this quite in detail. So it says right here, L340 is a very similar to H. debleterata. H. H. debletera. Okay? I probably screwed that up really bad. L129. They can be told apart by the number of teeth in the lower jaw. L340 has the lowest number of teeth in the lower jaw of any Hypancistrus species, 2 to 6 on each side. So, on the lower jaws, these guys have between 2 and 6 teeth on each side, and L129 has more than 6. So that's how you can tell them apart. But to do that, you'd have to have a dead animal. So it's really hard to tell them apart. Aside from that, they also have some physical differences. L340 is also usually more rust red or orange in its base color compared to the more yellow gray H. debletera. But that is not a clear indicator because these guys do have offspring that are gray, white, and all other colors. So the patterning is definitely not a good sign, a good way to differentiate between them. And it also says that here as well. In pattern, the two forms can be separated. There are also a slight difference in body shape. L340 is a little more compressed and has a slightly wider head, and than the more elongate L129. So the L129 is a little bit more elongate. The L340 is a bit more compressed and has a wider head. And also, you can actually see between the eyes. It's more pronounced, and you can actually see a clear stop in the middle of the two eyes, which the L129 does not seem to have. It has more of a, it's hard to explain this, but it has more of a L199 head shape, as opposed to these guys have more of a L471 head shape, if that makes any sense. But to even explain that, you'd have to have seen all these fish. So just to generally buy your fish from a reputable person that also has labeled them correctly, and chances are you're going to get the right type of fish. Common names are not a good way to identify fish, but usually these guys are going to be labeled as L340 Mega Clowns because that is a little bit more pricier than the L129, which is a little bit more cheaper for some reason. Although right now all these fish are on the cheaper end of Hypancistrus because they are more commonly available through export and importing from Brazil and the Amazon region. But having said that, line bred varieties are gonna still be expensive. For example, the black and white ones that have the really nice high white coverage that I have here, they're gonna be a lot more expensive than the wild caught ones that you can buy for about $30 to $40 each for adults. That's how much I actually paid for these. I paid about $40 each for my adult group per fish, and I got 12 fish initially, and now I have almost 100 easily. So they're quite easy to breed. So there's a whole video about that coming up. Now, speaking of breeding, these guys can hybridize with the L129 most likely as well. They can definitely hybridize with the L333s. They can hybridize with the L236 lines. They can also hybridize with L66, L260, L262, as well as many other types of Hypancistrus, and some of those hybrids might not be viable and definitely not desirable. So definitely keep these guys in a species only tank because they are so easy to hybridize with so many other types of Hypancistrus, especially the 236s. They are very similar size, and you are going to lose the value of your 236 as well as the value of your 340s by hybridizing the two species, because now you're going to have a mutt pleco that is not going to have any value and you can't really sell for a lot of money. So really pay attention to keeping them in their own tanks if you are going to keep them in a colony setting. Also, you want to keep a group. They definitely seem to be colony animals. They definitely seem to have social hierarchy, and there definitely seems to be sexual mate preference by females. What do I mean by that? I have two dominant males in the tank, and the dominant males are both producing fry at this point. The male in this case, which is my number one dominant male, who has produced about 6 clutches of fry in the past 3 months odd, And the second dominant male, I'll get some beautiful footage for you guys. He's actually usually in this cave here, or he moves over to one of these caves where all the females usually hide in. And he only has about 2 clutches of eggs. And initially I thought that was because my first dominant male is stopping him from spawning, but I'm starting to realize that it's not actually my first dominant male who doesn't leave the cave at all. He actually hasn't come out of his cave in the last 3 months. He, I think, is eating the debris that gets collected through the sides, as well as some of the egg yolks and stuff like that that go bad. I'm pretty sure he's eating something because he hasn't looked like he's lost any weight. I'll put some beautiful footage of him because he does stick his head out every once in a while and he'll get some food and run back inside. Now, I used to think that it was him that's stopping the other male from breeding or spawning, but I'm lately starting to realize that the reason the second male has not been spawning is because the females definitely tend to prefer the first dominant male over the second dominant male. Although they are exactly the same size, they're almost the same fish, I can't tell them apart aside from the fact that the first dominant male is in this cave, and I can tell his markings. He's a little bit, like he has specific markings compared to the second one who has specific markings of his own. But aside from those two things, they're identically the same fish. They're same size. They're exactly the same robust level. They're both healthy. They're prime, and they both can hold their own. And for some reason, the females tend to prefer this guy or the other guy 8 out of 10 times. So I don't know exactly how to explain that, except that there's definitely a social hierarchy, and they definitely seem to be able to know that he's the more dominant fish. I've noticed this in my Rhine loricaria as well, where there will be a dominant male where all the females would want to spawn, and there will be 3 other males in the tank that no other females want to even touch for some weird reason, even though those males could be bigger and all that. It's just a dominance thing. The more dominant male that can hold more ground, more territory, and chase all the other males away or fight the other males seems to be preferred by the females. Now there's definitely some level of sexual preference in there, and I definitely want to study that more in detail. But as for now, I totally believe that keeping them in colonies seems to be ideal for this particular species as well as many other Hypancistrus. And having said that, I have been proven wrong by many of you guys who do breed Hypancistrus in pairs and in smaller tanks, in like 20 gallons or 15 gallon tanks, or 100 liters, 160 liters, and even keeping groups of like several in a small tank, like 150 liter tank, and that's definitely doable, and based on your caves and water change schedule and stuff like that. So the same thing applies to your Hypancistrus 340 Mega Clown Plecos. So they also go by L019, LDA 019, or L340 Mega Clown Plecos, Hypancistrus species. Comment below and let me know if you have any questions, because I really want to help you guys with these fish, because I remember when I first got mine, I got a group of 7 and they lasted for 7 days. All 7 of them were dead within the first 7 days. They actually got an ick outbreak. I didn't know what was going on. They were white fish with black lines, and I put them into a tank, into a quarantine tank. The temperature was 77 degrees, and there was a piece of wood in there and a power head, so I thought they were fine. Filter, power head, glass bottom, everything was good. And whatever I read at the time 10 years ago was that's what you do with plecos. And I did that, and I actually put a heater the second day to bring up the temperature to 79 degrees. And by day 3, I had lost 2 underneath the piece of wood. I didn't even notice. And then I looked under the wood because they wouldn't come out. And by day 4, day 5, they were all gone. By day 7, I had one hanging in there with like a ton of ick on it, like covered in like white powdery ick. And I was medicating him and everything. And day 7, he was done. He was flushed all 7 of them within the first 7 days. So it's quite sad. So I really want to help you guys not have that happen to your fish, and to help you have these guys live for a very long time. In my understanding, they can live for up to 15 plus years. And for a small fish that grows about 3.5 inches, mine are about 3.5 inches, my large males. Loricarrier.info says they grow to about 4 inches, and Planet Catfish says their standard length, which is without the tail, is 3.1 inches or near the same size. Now, in my experience, most of the fish that I've seen are quite smaller than that, but there are ones that do reach that size, usually large males. So they're quite easy to take care of in that context. You can keep them in smaller aquariums, but I wouldn't recommend keeping them anything under 3 foot by 1 foot footprint for a group of 10, because even though they are quite small, they are quite aggressive and quite territorial, so you really want to pay attention to that. And you also really want to pay attention to their diet, which is they eat insects and stuff like that, and so they're predominantly insectivore and meat eating fish. They do eat some vegetables, but not zucchini or cucumber or green beans. Those are like garbage when it comes to this type of fish, and they will give your fish bloat and it will kill your fish. So what type of greens can you feed it? You can feed it spirulina tablets, you can feed it kelp wafers, you can feed it other types of kelp and marine algae. I feed all those types of food to these guys once a month-ish. I feed them Sarah Wells chips about once a month. I feed them angelfins.ca catfish chips once a month. And the rest of the time, they get a high-protein diet. Right now, everybody's on Hypancistrus Grow and Hypancistrus Spirulina Paste, as well as Dr. Basilears and Biofish Food. And also, they are getting some Golden Pearls 300 to 500 microns mixed in with the Ebo Aquaristic Hypancistrus Grow Paste for the fry. So that's what I'm feeding them right now, and they also get other types of commercially available fish food, and they love it. So anything with high protein content, I really recommend Northfin or Nutrifin Bug Bites color enhancing formula, which has the black soldier fly larvae. Their Pleco formula is good, but the color enhancing formula with the soldier fly larvae seems to be a really good food for this particular species, because they do have a proclivity to eating insects, and that food is made out of insect larvae, so that's really good. Anything the Hypancistrus Grow from Ebo is great. The Artemia prosoft from Ebo is great. Feed a few different Ebo varieties of food, so check out their line of food for Hypancistrus. They have quite a bit of food, anything above high protein value of 50% or higher, with a low fat content. I would say you don't want to feed your fish too much fat. That goes across the board with most of the fish that we keep. So in closing arguments, that's basically it. They're quite easy fish. The pH and the TDS don't seem to matter, for mine at least. They breed in tap water. They live in tap water. I do keep the nitrates quite low in this tank. The nitrates in this tank are about 10 parts per million right now. The tap water in my tap comes out right now at 163 parts per million with 0 nitrates. And this tank is 173 parts per million of total dissolved solids. And so, doing a simple math, I can deduce and say it has about 10 or 11 parts per million nitrates at this exact moment. And it's about a week into a water change. And so it's, I do the water changes in this tank every other week usually, unless I need to take water out of here for another tank where I'm doing a large volume water change, and I want to take out some water out of here to fill the other tank back with some aged water with low nitrates, and then fill the rest up with good clean water that has 0 nitrates. So this really helps me. And comment below and let me know if you want me to make a separate video about how I keep my nitrates really low. I was actually going to buy aquarium resin, but I didn't end up buying the resin because we went into lockdown, and I lost well, I didn't lose my job, but I was unemployed for the last few months, so I didn't actually have a steady income coming in aside from the government check. So I was kind of waiting till I started back working after COVID to buy the resin, but I managed to bring the nitrates down based just simply on water changes, as well as having plants in the tank. So that really helps me with bringing the nitrates down. So it's nothing much I can add to it. The temperature in here is about 83 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to keep it on the warmer side, not because I want to, but this tank is one of my most warmest tanks, and they seem to like it and then breed quite readily in that temperature. They can be kept anywhere from 78 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. I would say keep it on the moderately 80-ish, 81, 82 degrees area. You don't want to push 84 degrees. You don't want to go below 78 degrees, just like any other types of Hypancistrus or most of the tropical fish I keep. I keep all of them in the same temperature. My whole room is heated to this temperature. So they seem to be quite easy in that context. Clean water, lots of water changes, good quality food with lots of proteins, and that's it essentially. And they breed quite readily. So the group method seems to work for me. Pairs do seem to work as well. A lot of people have messaged me and told me that they breed their fish in pairs. But I do recommend keeping them in groups personally, because I feel that they are a social animal, and they do require the hierarchy as well as a social interactions to fully live their entire life in comfort and happiness. Because the female mate selection, for example, was baffling to me, because I did not think that fish were that keen on you know they were there evolutionarily, but it seems like they are. These guys are quite intelligent. They actually, I mean, they're long-lived animals. They live for like 15, 20 years. So they do have good memory. They're quite smart. They remember you. They look at you when you look in the tank. They can turn their eyes around and look at you. Their actually eyes are on more on the top of the set, on top of their head, as opposed to set to the side. So kind of like an evil eye, like the L471s. It's hard to explain it, but when I see them, I can quite easily tell them apart from other Hypancistrus just by this top, and it's quite remarkable. They're gorgeous fish. You can't tell them apart by markings. Don't expect to. They will produce fry that look like 333s. They will produce fry that look like L199s in terms of markings. I mean, not the face markings, but the overall body markings and stuff. There's a quite wide variety. The most common one seems to be what I have for the wild types, but then the fry that come out of them, all different types, colors, and all that. So it's really hard to tell them from markings. The best way is to count their teeth. This is actually a female, so you can actually see her pelvis. So you can tell females and males apart by the pelvis there. And this is a little guy that died yesterday. I feel really bad. But yeah, he just came out of the cave not too long ago. So small belly, cute little guy. So thank you so much for watching the video. It's been a long one. As always, I love you all. I'll see you on the next video. God bless. Also, really quickly, I wanted to add, I'm really excited to get back to work. As you've noticed, I've shaved and all that good jazz. But if people keep messing up and the state of emergency keeps extending, our work keeps getting pushed back. So I can't get back to work until they lift the state of emergency. So everybody, please get your act together. Stay home unless you have to go out for work or to get food or for an emergency. Unless that, don't go outside. Don't go to the beach. Don't go to the park. Don't do anything that puts yourself or other people at risk that will increase the spread of this virus, which will mean we will have to stay in lockdown for even longer. So please, everybody, do me a huge favor. Wear a mask if you're outside, and don't go out unless you actually have to. Thank you so much. I love you all. God bless you.